Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Cloud Show. I have an awesome guest today. He has maybe the best job a tech person can have in the world, which is amazing. We're going to be talking about cloud strategy. Today, we're going to talk about how to move from having a cloud-first strategy, whatever that means, into moving towards becoming really, truly cloud native. And the guest today, he works at Lego Group, which is amazing. He works for Lego, come on. And his name is Rasmus Hald. Hello, Rasmus, my friend.
Hi, Magnus, my friend. Good to see you.
The same. It's good to see you too. You know, everyone in tech hates you, right?
Why?
Because you work for Lego, man. It's like we want to kill you and take over your life.
Okay. If
Fair enough.
then I back down freely.
I'm not going to deny it. I know it's envious to work for Lego. Yeah, it's amazing.
Okay, but I will tell you, it's wonderful. We play a lot, right? We have a lot of fun. Actually,
Sure.
just Friday last week, we had a international play day. So it was all our sites all over the world. Took the Friday off to go and play with the colleagues, right? It was amazing. It was festival mood.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's great. Okay,
But
well,
I
cool.
would say the downside, Magnus, and everyone, is that you don't. I mean, it's really difficult not to go and buy some stuff, right? So I recently acquired the Dungeons and Dragons set, and it was a choice. I just had to pick it up. So
and then you have to have time to build all the sets. You know, it's a big job.
I know, right?
Terrible. All right, so you work for Lego, and let's see if I can recall. You basically are like developer. What's your title again? Sorry.
Oh, it's a fancy title that comes with the job. So I'm head of developer experience and
That's what I was looking
cloud
for.
foundation.
Yep,
But basically, it's everything with hosting. So majority of that is cloud for us. But we do have factories where we have edge computing. This is where we do hosting, right? And then I do developer experience. So pretty much whatever can make our developers engaged, more productive, more happy. That's
Brilliant. What an awesome job. All right, so obviously you came to Lego to work with their cloud strategy and help Lego with cloud. You had previous long cloud experience, and that's why you came to Lego. And so you're talking about strategy-wise, how to have a cloud-first strategy. Many companies have defined that we shall have a cloud-first strategy. And then what's the difference between saying that, having that on a piece of paper that says we have a cloud-first strategy, and the difference between that and being truly cloud native?
Yeah, probably some of the big management consultant firms have aligned their thinking and made PowerPoint saying that any enterprise should have a cloud-first strategy because it's quite common, right?
Yeah.
But I really think we need to depict that. So what I did when I joined the group 3 years ago was I drew up a new cloud strategy for Lego Group that outlined we were moving towards cloud first. And what we lately have been doing is refreshing that strategy. And now we are abandoning the cloud first. I'll get back to why. But basically saying we want to build not cloud first, but cloud native. And I would like to unpack that as well.
Yeah, definitely. What is the difference for people who don't know? I'm sure a lot of managers, administrators out there, they've heard about this, having this fancy cloud first strategy. But then, what does that actually really, really entail?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that for me at least, and what we have been steering towards with the cloud first strategy was just saying that what cloud is our first choice for hosting applications.
Yep.
And we would even unpack that a little further and say we actually prefer hosting with software as a service for anything that's non-differentiating. So rather than running your HR system, you would go and buy a software as a service application that did that for the enterprise. So that was the preferred way of hosting. But when we have differentiating workloads, of course, where we do custom development, that's when we use the cloud providers out there. And there we would say it's cloud first, right? Now, in the last 3 years, what we've been doing is also taking some of the legacy workloads or the classic workloads, because we had a data center that did general compute hosting, and then pushing that towards cloud. So just getting rid of the rest, you could say, and doing that bit of spring cleaning, just to make sure that that critical last piece, you get rid of that or get that to cloud, right?
Yep.
I think that is probably the key to our success. Is we have had a transition over 3 to 5 years with moving to software as a service,
Yep.
using cloud as the preferred option,
Yep.
and ending that strategy cycle with moving the rest as a sort of a lift and shift approach, and then we modernize when we are in cloud. So
Right.
that's where we're coming from. Cloud first means software as a service. It means putting whatever you can in cloud. But for us, factories are all over the world, right? And they are in remote area, and latency matters. So there we will have edge computing sites.
Right.
We simply have like data center setups,
Yeah.
but exclusively for that site.
Yeah. So you have the site specific or site located edge compute scenario. Those will exist because you need them. Like you said, latency is a thing, and for the rest, for everything else, like the purchasing systems and sales and I guess logistics and
Whatever, right? So
all the other things that are not manufacturing, you have the real cloud nativeness. Have you completed a transition away from having any other data center than cloud yet? Or
yes, and that's actually why we now this week we are announcing our refreshed cloud strategy, and now it's called a cloud and edge hosting strategy.
Oh, that's cool.
Encompass that we will be providing compute anywhere it's needed.
Yeah.
But cloud is our that's our center, right? That's our core. And then we call out specifically a transition from cloud first, because I believe everything is hosted where it should be. So take that with an asterisk, right? But that's for majority of our workloads. They are hosted where they should be.
Right.
So we are in a good place. We don't need to push cloud first anymore. So we are transitioning into a target state that talks about not where things are hosted, so cloud, not cloud, but how they are hosted.
Yeah.
So addressing much more on the architecture level. And this is where cloud native comes in. And if we unpack that term a bit, because it has been used by marketing, it has been used by commercialized software. So, but if we actually look at what the Cloud Native Computing Foundation talks about, when they talk about being cloud native, it's not about Kubernetes, right? It's actually about the characteristics of the architecture.
Yes, it is.
And there's sort of there's 5 characteristics that you need to consider, and call them out as this is the way we build, right? So if we unpack the 5, the first one is loosely coupled.
Yep.
Right, Magnus, you have been building with serverless for years, right?
Oh my God, yes.
And you have been building, right? You don't start with the corporate network, right? You don't start with creating firewalls and VPNs and whatnot. No, you actually start by a small self-contained application that is loosely coupled from everything. And then we use APIs to integrate, right? We use APIs to call the data we need. We use APIs and messaging to call the applications we need. And that way we have loosely coupled applications.
Yep, definitely.
This massively allows us to secure our estate, right? Because blast zones of individual applications are much smaller. But it also allows for a very much event-driven architecture.
Yep. I would agree that it goes so far as to say that it's sort of like an architectural style. It's kind of right.
Yes.
Yeah.
If we look at the second characteristic, it's sustainable. and that's a word we all care about, of course.
Yes.
But in the context of computing, this is about efficient use of resources.
Yes. Yes.
So where in the classic architecture you would start with a virtual machine, which is a fixed capacity model, right? You buy a capacity. Even in cloud, right? You buy a certain VM.
That's absolutely right.
It has a price tag, and it doesn't really matter if you use it or not. You're paying for it, right?
Absolutely.
Where when we talk about sustainable compute, this is efficient use of resources and moving to that transaction-based model. Of course, we have to pay our providers, right? But we can avoid over provisioning by having a transaction model. And here, I love serverless, right? So using Azure functions, Lambda functions, because here you pay per transaction rather than paying for the capacity, and your compute needs will just scale automatically with the needs of the business. So I will give you an example. Lego.com is fairly popular, and when we release new stuff, also when we do our Black Friday sales and our insider weekends, and our workloads are based on serverless, right? So they scale with us. And that's just an amazing characteristic and super sustainable in many ways.
Absolutely. Agreed.
The third one, if you're ready for it.
Yes, I'm ready for it.
Manageable. And this really comes down to automation, right?
Yes, yes, it does.
So, I mean, one DevOps famous person once said, friends don't let friends right-click deploy, right? So
That's right.
this is very much around reducing the potential of human errors, streamlining management tasks by just having everything, codifying everything we do, right?
That's right.
You and I, we don't deploy, right? We shouldn't have access to production environments.
The first thing you do is set up a pipeline that deploys an application. The application itself is empty. There's nothing there. You manage to deploy with automation an empty application that does nothing. Good for you. Now you put the application in there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I know I'm preaching to the choir in this show, right? But it's just essential, and that we keep talking about the manageability in our architecture.
So I have a question about that. Have you felt that was a big hurdle of knowledge for the organization? You don't have to answer specifically, but I have experiences that say that this is something that people are not always accustomed to out there, because not every company has been doing that in the past.
Yeah,
this is hard.
Yeah, I mean, we can take it out of the context of my work and just talk about in general. And I would say, yes, it is a new way of working for some people. And if you're a software developer, you might not necessarily know how to set up pipelines, right? It's a skill, it's a trade.
It's a different skill.
And that's why some teams they invest in those capabilities. But I think we are getting into a much more lean position, and where I work at the Lego Group, I mean, we expect all product teams. We are organized not like a functional IT department, but more like a digital native company with product teams working in their own bounded context. And every team, and we have more than 200, they are expected to be DevOps teams. So they have to build and deploy their own code to production.
Yeah.
And you can't do that at scale if you don't automate. It doesn't work.
Agreed. No, it's not going to be possible. Okay, brilliant. I like that a lot. What's the fourth? Are we up to four? Yes. What's the fourth?
Yeah, the fourth one. Let's do the fourth one.
Yes.
Observable.
Observable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So maybe that one requires also a bit of unpacking.
Yeah.
So in a world of highly automated, elastic applications that are loosely coupled, right? And you also talked about microservices as a pattern. You would have a lot of smaller applications. I mean, doing classic IT monitoring is not going to do it, right? Also, as your application landscape grows, right, one team will not know what another one does, but they are dependent, right? The APIs, the messaging is depending on each other. So we simply need to invest in observability. And this is about collecting and analyzing data to maintain system health. And we need both real time here, but we also sort of need to look at this as a data set that we need to expose, right? Because if I'm depending on the Magnus API in order for me to fulfill orders,
a lot of people do.
Yeah, exactly. And you cannot signal me if you're running degraded. You wouldn't, of course, or if you're offline, you wouldn't, of course, Magnus. But if we don't have that signaling in our loosely coupled architecture, then I will start troubleshooting my own, right? Because something is broken. And when we have the three others, we need observability as well here. There's some brilliant solutions out there. But for many organizations, this is something that you end up doing after the fact, and we need it as part of our architecture. We need to think big data in this as well.
And you need to be able to observe not only your application and how the health of it, but you are using and you will be using a lot of various other services in the cloud. For example, in the past, you might have an app server and a database server with a piece of cable this long between them, right? But now that they are, instead, your application is hosted somewhere in an app service or similar, but your database might be in a database service somewhere. So you need to be able to observe that service as well to understand if your app is behaving strangely, could it be that there's a hiccup in the service that you are in fact dependent on?
Yes.
It's not only your code, but it's those things as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
You need to think about analytics. You need to think about monitoring, real-time monitoring. You need to think about alerting. So how do you activate your engineers when things go wrong? Because often we go into having business critical processes, right? And we need to be ready. We need to do our fire drills. So when things break, I mean, we have been in this industry for a while. Things break, right?
Things will break.
Yeah.
Could be your fault, but it could be somebody else's fault. You're dependent on something and that breaks. Right? What happens to your application when that other thing breaks? You know?
Magnus, you know it's always DNS, right?
Yeah, it's always DNS, obviously. Come on.
You need to identify which one it is, right? But it actually leads to the fifth characteristic, which is resilience. So part of building cloud native is the ability to handle and recover from failures gracefully. And I find this as one of the coolest thing about working with cloud technology is that you actually have the components, right? We just need to think differently when we're architecting. And often in a classic world of virtual machines, we would then use hypervisors and do hardware fault tolerance. So kind of look at it bottom up, because hardware is a natural source of error, right? Because you have moving parts, you have aging parts, and it breaks. But in the cloud world, you don't have to worry about that layer. But you still have failures, right? So this is about architecting for failures. There's some great learnings in chaos engineering, but it starts with good architecture. So how do we reduce the impacts of failures? How do we even architect for high availability? There's some really cool learnings here on how we architect for resilience.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So we have all these things that we need to consider or to think about, and they're not tech dependent even at all. These are strategies and patterns and ways of working. Even like DevOps is a way of working, right?
Yes.
You can either deploy with automation or you can deploy manually, right? Manually will suck. You know, it's going to take time. It's going to be error prone. It's going to be horrible.
It might be easier just now, right? Like right-click deploy, but I mean, it's quickly eaten by you losing track of your changes, etc.
Absolutely.
So as you can see, we have moved from, well, where things are hosted into how we host, right? Using these 5 characteristics of cloud native.
Fantastic.
And I can only recommend it because it really gives the guidance to our engineering colleagues that does the architecture, right? To consider when you build with these 5, and you will be off for a good start.
Absolutely, yeah. It can be a journey to get to proficiency on all these aspects, obviously, because it's going to be hard, right? But it will be rewarding.
It will. It will.
All right, brilliant. That was absolutely excellent. I am so happy that you came to the Cloud Show today to talk to us about how Lego Group is going from having a cloud first strategy to actually being cloud native and what that actually means.
Thanks for having me, Magnus. Absolute pleasure to be here.
It was my pleasure completely. Thank you so much. And audience, thank you for watching the Cloud Show, and see you next time.